Hi, my name is Xavier. We'll be talking about HIV and AIDS awareness in the NBA. For those of you who don't know, HIV is human immunodeficiency virus, which leads to problems and complications with your immune system. And then AIDS is just the HIV virus, but a more detrimental state with more diseases, and it also has like more complications. HIV can be contracted through unprotected sexual intercourse, anal or oral, from mother to child during birth, or they can be contracted during the pregnancy, as well as through breastfeeding. There have been speculations to when AIDS was early to how you can contract AIDS or HIV. And people thought you can contract it through sweat or through tears as well as saliva, but that's been they proved that that was wrong, so you can't contract it in any of those ways. Um, there have been no cures for HIV or AIDS that have been known or found. All they can do is give you treatments to slow it down, and depending on the amount of money you have, depends on the type of treatment you can get to slow down your age, which is going to depend on how long you live. 5% of those who contract the HIV virus are between ages 15 to 19. 16% of those are ages 20 to 24, and then 14% of those are from ages 25 to 29. 45% of the people that contract AIDS or HIV are African American, 29% are white, 2% are Asian, and 22% are Hispanic or Latino. Early on, there weren't too many people that were aware, like in the 80s or the 90s. There weren't too many people that knew what AIDS was because they didn't know anybody that had them or were close to them. So when an individual by the name of Magic Johnson, who was a professional basketball player in the NBA, contracted the disease and then he announced that he had it, which forced him to retire, it forced a lot of people to gain more knowledge about the disease and learn more about it because he was a mogul and a head figure for the NBA, for the professional sport. So he's pretty well known. He was popular throughout the city of Los Angeles. He's well known now. He has a couple of theaters. He owns a couple of Starbucks, a restaurant called Fat Burger. I don't know if you guys have ever ate there. And then he's part owner of the Dodgers. So he kind of like runs LA. Yeah, he announced it, and he was forced to retire from the sport of basketball because they didn't know anything about the disease at the time. So there were a lot of players that were scared because they didn't want to play against him or with him because they thought they might be able to contract the disease, and they weren't trying to do that. But during the course of his disease, before he told anybody he had it, he had to sit out a couple of games, and because his doctor didn't know how his body was going to react to it because they thought it could break down his immune system. So what they did was they sat him out, said they had flu-like symptoms, so he missed games, and people were wondering what was going on. So when he came to announce it, that he had to retire, it shocked not just the NBA, but it shocked people around him. And he was able to reach out with a couple of celebrities. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Starsky and Hutch, but one of the guys on there, his wife, she had contracted the disease through a transfusion from when she was giving birth to her daughter, and then her daughter ended up with AIDS, and they both passed away. So he was actually a spokesperson and a face for AIDS, and they were mad at him because they didn't think he was doing enough at first to help others. But as he got more involved, the NBA was kind of forced to learn more about it and research about AIDS more. So it's kind of like he was the NBA's child, and like if your parents take care of you, then they want to use you as an example. So the NBA tried to use him as an example to learn more about something. So if we have a certain disease, our parents want to know more about it, so how they can take care of it, what precautions they can use. So the NBA took precautions and they implemented some new rules in the NBA. So if a player gets cut or he starts to bleed, they have to call a timeout. And he either have to switch his jersey, there's blood on his jersey, or they have to the trainer will have to put on gloves, and then they will have to patch up the cut. But for him, there was a game where he actually got cut, and then like people were whispering, and everybody was kind of staring at him, and it made him feel kind of awkward. So what the trainer did, so that nobody would really freak out, was he didn't put on gloves. but he still took the rest of the precautions to cover it up and make sure he was bandaged up. And when he did that, it kind of showed that they didn't really have a reason to be scared, that they could still play with him, because then they would soon learn that they couldn't contract the disease through the sweat or perspiration. So I think that was pretty big for the NBA. And while he was sitting out, he was still getting voted to the All-Star game. Fans were still voting for him, but there were players around the league that still didn't want to play for him, or friends that were talking about him. I don't want to play with that guy. But they, a couple nights before the All-Star game, they brought in like a big researcher on AIDS, and they soon learned that he will be okay. He'll be okay to play. But he didn't feel right because people were still talking about him, and people were kind of like backstabbing him. So he played a few more games, and then he ended up retiring and just trying to focus solely more on AIDS. During his AIDS, while he had HIV, he was married and his wife was pregnant, so he was afraid that his wife might have contracted the disease and that his son could possibly have it as well because he was having sex with her. But luckily, neither one of them carried the disease, and he's been on a couple medications, and he's been working with the United Nations, the AIDS campaign, and he's been living with AIDS for about 20 years now. And now, like today in the NBA, they have AIDS Awareness Day where the players wear red and they use the ribbons. The coaches wear red ribbons, and they wear like shooting shirts like this. I don't know if some of you guys see that. But yeah, the jerseys are red. They wear red shirts, red shoes, just to kind of stand out for those. And then, so now that a lot of people see that he's still living with the disease today, they think that they can live just as long as he can. So it's kind of like it's bittersweet because it brought more awareness to the disease, but then it's bitter because people think that they can live just as long as they can, as long as he can, even though he has the disease. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you.